Depression really wiped out so much of everything. Many of us weren't doing a doggone thing because it was starvation time. Let's rent a theater dark and invite all the producers. That'll be great. Well, everybody thought it was a great idea, except that we rented the theater with one bulb on stage, the work light, and nobody came. Except at the end of it, a tall man came over to me and he said, "Come with me to the Barrymore Theater." And I went, and this voice said, "Can you sing any ordinary regular song like Tea for Two or something?" And I said, I don't know if I know the lyrics. He said, "Well, I'll throw them to you. Come on. Tea for two." And I sang along with Richard Rodgers. I didn't know who it was. I didn't know it was George Abbott. It was Richard Rodgers, Larry Hart. I didn't even know who they were at that time. And I got the job.
The show was Pal Joey, and it marked a real departure for the songwriting team of Rodgers and Hart and their director, George Abbott. Based on the stories of John O'Hara, Pal Joey dispensed with the innocent optimism of the traditional musical comedy. Tawdry nightclub routines framed the story of an affair between a wealthy married woman and a sleazy gigolo.
I got to sing and dance. I had this long sequin dress cut down to there, and he sang, "I'm a red hot mama, but I'm blue for you." And the lights changed as I said blue and green.
Pal Joey was an unusual event in Broadway history. This was a show that wasn't sort of light and airy and amusing.
It is a weird sort of enterprise. None of the characters have even a bowing acquaintance with decency. It seemed time to us, however, that the musical comedy start looking at the facts of life. Richard Rodgers.
Only the charm of the leading actor made his character's amoral behavior acceptable.
The star of Pal Joey's Gene Kelly. He was playing a very good character for himself, a very brash, cocky person who was very randy for girls. He was very young, he wasn't yet 30. He was an energetic, fresh, aggressive, Irish-American presence, which had a great charm.
The book was taken seriously with Rodgers and Hart, and Pal Joey was really revolutionary in its time. They did a remarkable job in turning the musical theater into a serious art form.
I'm wild again, beguiled again, a simpering, whimpering child again, bewitched, bothered, and bewildered am I.
Pal Joey had no happy ending. The characters simply walked off the stage in opposite directions. Within 3 years, Rodgers and Hart would go in opposite directions as well, ending a partnership that had lasted over 2 decades. The evolution of the musical into a more sophisticated art form would have to wait until Richard Rodgers found a new partner in the midst of the Second World War.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
The entry of the United States into World War II galvanized the country. And Irving Berlin, who had created a rousing army review during the First World War, was asked by the government to rally the troops again. This Is the Army had a cast composed of real soldiers, and the proceeds from the performances went to the Army Emergency Relief Fund. Many of the performers juggled rehearsal schedules with weapons training. A typical day might involve dancing in the morning, firing rifles in the afternoon, and dressing up as a woman at night, all with the approval of the US Army. On opening night, almost 2,000 people were packed into the Broadway Theatre.
It was July 4th, 1942, the first July 4th of the war. Crowds in the street outside, packed lobby full of the usual first-nighters, but also a lot of big brass. People up from Washington. I'd never been to a first night before. I was 15 years old. So this was a pretty thrilling first night to have. And I can remember the excitement in this audience just before it ever started. And then the curtain opens, and there are 300 young men in uniform on bleachers delivering the opening chorus.
Many years ago.
And it builds from there. Soldiers, these wonderful soldiers, singing new Irving Berlin songs, doing funny skits, being marvelous. And already in the intermission, the buzz in the theater was extraordinary. This was Irving Berlin's best show yet. And then, towards the end of the second act, my father himself came out on stage. There he was in his World War I uniform, and he sang with that true, frail voice, a little nervous at first.
Soldier quite a while, and I would like to state the life is simply wonderful. The army food is great. I sleep with 97 others in a wooden hut. I love them all. They all love me. It's very lovely, but...
And then beginning to pick up and tapping, beating his hat against his leg for the rhythm, really delivering it.
And step upon it heavily and spend the rest of my life in bed.
Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. Oh, how I love to remain in bed. For the hardest blow of all is to hear the bugler call. You gotta get up, you gotta get up, you gotta get up this morning.
The show played 112 performances on Broadway before touring the country and being adapted for Hollywood. Women were added to the cast, and supporting talents were enlisted, including Lieutenant Ronald Reagan.
We're going on tour. What do you know, Boston, Philadelphia, Washington? Washington? Hey, wouldn't it be something if the president came to see us, the chief himself?
When the show toured overseas, Irving Berlin served as America's troubadour, performing in hospitals and near the front lines. In 1943, as soldiers shipped out of New York for the fight in Europe, they saw a new kind of Broadway show. A show that integrated songs with story and dance. A show that would remind them what they were fighting for.